nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
I want to make it clear that the views expressed by our hosts are not considered the official stance of MBR Views. Remember, this is all about having fun and enjoying the ride.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Tracer Round Podcast. A tracer round is a type of ammunition designed to help visually track the path of rounds fired. Tracers show where you need to adjust or redirect fire. Join Army veteran Sergeant First Class Terry Lynch for Tracer Rounds, the first ever podcast of its type. Whether it be military, music, sports, politics, education, relationships, or gender issues, no target is off limits or out of bounds. Are you on target? Does your fire need to be recalibrated? Whether you adjust fire or fire for effect, tune in to Tracer Rounds, where the range is always open and there are rounds going down range.
Hi, welcome to Tracer Rounds, and I'm your host, Terry, and you're on MBR, where veterans are given their voice. I'm welcoming today into the studio Joey Laswell. He's also a podcaster, and his show is called Money in the Military, and he starts really soon. When do you start that, Joey?
So that'll be June 10th, so it'll be Monday at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time.
Monday at 8 a.m. So be sure and tune into that. Well, so we wanted to talk a little bit about his show and about his business that he started, but I also want to talk about your military service. So can you tell us what branch of the service you served in, how long you served, what your job was, and just some things around your military service, if you don't mind?
Sure, of course. Yeah, so I joined in 2006. I went to, so my first base was Creech Air Force Base, which is north of Las Vegas. So I lived at Nellis in Las Vegas, but then we had to commute. It was like an hour and a half commute to Creech. Wow. So it was a long commute, but that was my first base I was there for almost 6 years. And then I volunteered to go to Korea so I can leave Las Vegas when I was ready to go after five years. And then after Korea, I did Korea for a year. I went to Osan, and I got my follow-on assignment to Misawa, Japan, and I was there for 3 or 4 years. And then I went to Travis Air Force Base in California. My job was originally I was satellite communications, and when I was at Creech, my first base was part of the drone program. So I got to work with the Predator drone, and we got to do a lot of cool. I got to be on the ground floor of that mission, so that was really cool. And then our career field merged with radios, and then I became RF transmissions, and then basically I dealt with radios and satellites together. So I did a little bit of everything, but ultimately I was a comm guy. I was a comm nerd. I'm still kind of a comm nerd, but yeah, it was really a great experience. And that's actually where I kind of got my interest in personal finance, was during my military career. And I can talk about that a little bit later too.
Yeah, no, would be interested in hearing about that. So, well, you started a side hustle, as I call it, because your day job is what? What do you do normally? 9 to 5 or 8 to 5?
95. Yeah. So I started after I left the service. I got my master's in social work, and I became a medical social worker. So I currently work at a hospital, doing case management, um, inpatient social work. So I kind of help with getting referrals to nursing facilities, help with homeless people, and every day is a new thing. But so yeah, my 95 is a social worker. Um, so and then I recently stumbled upon financial social work, and that's kind of where this whole side thing came to be.
So tell me a little bit about that, because I don't know that I understand social uh, finance. I don't understand that piece of it.
So yeah, so social work is a very broad field, and you can do a lot of different things in the social work world. So originally, my background, my bachelor's is in psychology, and I was gonna become a psychologist or a therapist, and then I was working at a psych facility, and a social worker actually started talking to me, and she kind of put the bug in my ear that. That, you know what, maybe you should be a social worker. And I had really had no experience with social work, to be honest, and I had no context of what to expect. But once I learned that there's a really broad field, I got really interested in it, and I went ahead and applied, and I got accepted and finished my degree. But then recently, within the last couple of months, I heard about financial social work, which is kind of it's a new-ish concept or subset of social work, but it's essentially kind of a more holistic perspective on managing finances and coaching people with their finances. It talks about like dealing with financial trauma, and so it's a little bit of it's not really financial therapy, but there is a therapeutic element to it. So it kind of toes the line of financial coaching and a little bit of wellness. So it's right up my alley, like, because I love being a social worker, and I've already been passionate about helping people with their finances. So I mean, this really is like a perfect like creation for me.
So do you help the patients that you're in the hospital with finance too, or is this something totally separate?
Yeah, that's totally separate. There are some like companies that hire financial social workers. It's still kind of a new thing where people don't even know what to do with or financial social workers.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's kind of, I mean, there is a lot of variety in the personal finance community. There are financial therapists. That's a whole different thing. There's financial coaches. There's a lot of, and there's, the traditional financial management, like the CPAs and the, the financial advisors. So that's a whole different element too. So this is kind of like a subset of social work and the finance world.
Okay. Well, so tell us about your job and what, your business you started, and
Mhm.
then how you help people, or how people can be helped by what you do. And then also tell us a little bit about what you plan to talk about in your podcast. I want to see how those interrelate.
Yeah. So basically, I started the Fire Social Worker, kind of like a brand slash like an identity, if you will. But it's like my Facebook page slash online presence. But Fire is financial independence, retire early. It's a whole like kind of a
Ah,
movement. Yeah. So that's where the Fire Social Worker came into play, and it
it's an
just
acronym. I
yeah,
wondered.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's I kind of did it. It's a little cryptic, and people look kind of like, "What is fire social worker?" So it kind of draws people in, and that was part of the point of it. But I also like the idea of like I'm on my own financial independence journey as a social worker. So I'm trying to kind of like tell my story, encourage people to follow along and then learn with me, but then also, I'm also trying to help people with educational, financial literacy. So I've been making videos and just content. And I one thing I learned was there's a lot of people out there struggling with their finances, and
Yeah.
it's a moving target. There's a lot of layers to it, but ultimately, what I learned when I was in the service was, you have these 18-year-olds coming right out of high school, and a lot of them don't have any kind of financial foundations. And this
Yeah.
is their first job. So there was a lot of people, and myself included. I joined when I was like 22, 23, so I was a little bit older when I joined. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just saw a need for financial education and counseling, and so I just did it as a wingman. I just
Yeah.
would encourage people to talk about money, and I would bring it up. And I was probably the annoying guy that would that would just want to talk about money and kind of like inject financial topics into conversations. But yeah, it was just something that I was just genuinely passionate about, and still am. um
Yeah.
but I was really trying to get people engaged and just talk about money, and kind of instead of having the stigma around money, I just wanted to have a conversation and learn from people too. So that was kind of the intention there.
Yeah. Well, so so you got started because you were starting to tell us the story about when you were in the military and your finances at that time. You want to talk
Hmm.
about that before we go to break?
Yeah. Yeah, so my quick financial origin story: when I joined in '06, I had like a decent amount of debt as an E3. So I had $20,000 in debt, and I basically just set a goal. I was like, I'm going to pay off this debt as soon as possible. I'm not sure. I can't remember if I put a 3-year mark on there, but ultimately I was like, I'm going to get this paid off as soon as possible. And then I
Yeah.
did pay it off in 3 years as an E3. I think I was an E4 by the time the 3-year mark. So I didn't stay as an E3, but I started as, making $1,500 a month. I actually found an old uh, pay stub from that period, and it was really, man, brought me back. But so
Yeah.
yeah, humble beginnings. I did the Dave Ramsey method. I just became a sponge for financial education, and took it upon myself to learn as much as I could. And then yeah, I paid it off in 3 years, and then I just kind of rolled that debt payment into investments and savings, and then before long, I had reached 6 figures in net worth.
Wow.
And then I got really interested in the fire movement, and so that's where I was like on my fire journey. But I also kind of had some, I call it messy fire, because I was kind of on a good upswing, a good trajectory, and then
Yeah.
I kind of fell off the rails a little bit, and I started kind of doing some consumer spending and traveling crazy amounts, and it was just, there was a lot of things that I kind of went on autopilot. And then I basically decided that I'm like, I got to get back on track. So this is kind of like my second attempt at fire. um, but I have all the tools in place, and I have, income, and I'm trying to work on this side business to bring in more income. But
Yeah.
I have the mechanisms in place and the knowledge. It's just that now I'm trying to put everything out there and do it myself again. But then also I'm trying to teach people, and kind of like a cautionary tale of like, okay, this is what you can do, and this is what you should do, the things that I did right. But then this is
Right.
also what you shouldn't do, the things that I did wrong. So I'm trying to be like transparent with my story, and just show people that, yeah, like, you're human, you can make mistakes, but you can still persevere at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, a personal story always is, something that people can take in and like look at their own situation and relate to. When you just, say, well, facts and figures, and you need to put money aside in a 401k and or 457 or whatever you have, and life will be so great. But when you tell them your story, where like, look, this is what happened to me. This is the situation I found myself in, and that's why I'm doing this now. So it's
Hmm.
relatable, and it does help people understand your message a little bit more when you give that personal, input into it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So if I wanted to be customer wise, what would a customer expect from your consulting business?
Well, I'm still kind of fleshing out some of the details, but I think the best way is to do online, kind of like a month-long program where it's kind of like a mini boot camp. And then it could even go longer than a month, but like it's almost like like a boot camp for a month that doing like weekly meetings on Zoom and check-ins throughout the week, giving like homework assignments and accountability. So basically like a personal trainer, just with your finances. That's kind of how I'm trying to imagine it in my head, that I'm not going to be a drill instructor. I'm not going to come at you like that, but I'm going to try to, lift you up, push you a little bit and encourage you at the same time. So that's, I'm looking at a monthly, like model for, like maybe even group coaching. I've looked into that. So I'm looking at different options, but ideally I would like to do one-on-one coaching. And then, if there's a possibility of doing group coaching, then because the thing is with that individual coaching is that it's time consuming. Whereas if I can reach more people in a group setting, I can get more, get more eyeballs and get more work done in a shorter amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I think that makes sense. And I think it's kind of interesting that you say you're, like you touch base and you're a finance trainer versus a fitness trainer. I like that. But financial fitness is also something that's part of holistic wellness because, wellness encompasses all kinds of aspects of yourself. It's mental, it's physical, it's emotional, it's, financial. Like all these pieces come together to make you a whole person and well. And so financial wellness is a significant part of that because people have so much stress around when they don't have their finances in order. And every month it's a constant battle of what don't I pay, or how do I pay this, or I've got this emergency now and how do I fund this emergency because I didn't plan on it. So yeah, it's a constant struggle. So I hear you. That makes perfect sense. So how should somebody get started in like being financially responsible with what they have, with the assets they have? What would be the first step if they didn't go to you, which I hope they do, but if they didn't go to you, what would somebody do with the first try at getting themselves together?
Well, I think Grizz is signaling we need to take a break, so we can touch on that whenever we get back. So
all right, thanks, Grizz.
Let's do that.
Take us to break.
Hombre muerto.
Dead man. 10 years hard time for something I didn't do. You've been living on easy street. Now justice coming to you. You're a dead man. You're a dead man walking.
opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Hi, welcome back to Tracer Rounds. I'm your host, Terry, and we're on MBR, the station giving veterans a voice, and I have my special guest in studio with me today, virtually, of course, Joey Laswell, and we're talking about his side business. But I wanted to give a shout out to my friend Joe Muse, who was singing in that video. He was my very first guest on my very first show, so he got to be my guinea pig. So I wanted to give him a shout out and tell him thank you for letting me experiment with him, and I appreciate his music. So, Joey, we left off with how do we get started on personal finance?
Ooh, yeah, and that's a big one. But I think just like any new endeavor, like it comes down to taking accountability of where you're at. So a big thing in social work is like, where are you meeting the person where they're at? So like my thing would be doing an accountability, I guess you would say, like round table, where you basically run through your situation with a kind of a fine-tooth comb. So that would be like running down all your debts and writing them down all on a piece of paper and really going through with that detail, which a lot of people don't want to do because it's out of sight, out of mind. Yeah. But it's something about putting it all on paper and then having it, like you can't escape that number, or that amount.
Right.
And I think a lot of it does come down to mindfulness, just like whenever you're on a diet or you're trying to lose weight, you have to worry about your calories in and your calories out. So your calories in would be your income. So, if you're struggling to, make your bills, then you do a side hustle. You start bringing in extra money. That's the easiest way to kind of provide some relief. But not everyone can do a side hustle. So then you got to cut down on your expenses. So that's what's going out. And that can be tough for some people. They're used to a certain standard of living or a certain niceties, and they don't want to necessarily cut back. But one thing that I like to kind of encourage people is to, and this is I take a lot from a lot of different financial people and mantras. So there's an author and personal finance kind of like guru that talks about, he writes, "I will teach you to be rich." It's Ramit Sethi. Basically, he's rich, and but he's got a show on Netflix too. It's actually really cool. But one of the things that he talks about is spending on the things that you love or you're passionate about or that brings you real joy, and then cutting everything else to the bone. So an example of that might be, if you truly enjoy your streaming services and you love movies and you watch them all the time, then you can spend on that. But if you don't, maybe you have like your cell phone bill, for instance. A lot of people spend a lot of money on their cell phone bill, and if you don't actually use your phone that much, then you can go with something like Mint Mobile or a cheaper cell phone provider to kind of save some money in that way. So there's just like little things that you kind of can do, just taking accountability, doing some reflection, I guess, and really one of the things that was really helpful for me was just tracking my expenses, like on a sheet of paper, manually, and now you can do it on your phone, you can do it automatically. So there's, but back in that time period, I was like, okay, I'm going to write down all my expenses. And it's just like tracking your calories, like you start to realize, wow, man, I'm spending a lot more money on video games than I thought, or whatever it is your guilty pleasure is. And then it kind of encourages mindfulness about the spending in the future. So for instance, when I was trying to cut down on expenses, I realized I was spending too much on like video games and DVDs and things like that. And so when I knew I was going to have to write down a purchase in my tracker, I thought twice about that purchase. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to write this down. And I'd actually talk myself out of some of those expenses because I realized that I'm trying to be accountable. I'm trying to trim the fat, and so just little things that could help. But another thing that I would also recommend is to, if you have like a family member or a friend who's really financially savvy and comfortable, and you're comfortable talking to them, I'm always an advocate for talking about your finances with people. I think that's something that we just don't do enough of, and I think people would be surprised just how relatable all of these financial problems really are. So you might be surprised that people who you think are doing well financially are actually not doing so well. So that's definitely something I would encourage, is to have a trusted financial partner that you could talk to about your problem.
Well, that makes sense, and I agree with that. We're going to go to a break here pretty quick. We've got about 2 minutes, but I wanted to welcome all of our guests to the studio. So I see Big Red, and I see Amber from Into the Weeds, and I see Joel, and whoever else we got out there. Welcome, welcome. And we do have a ticker up on the screen that has a phone line that's open. So if you have questions for Joey, you can call in. Or you can put it in the chat if you have some questions about your own finance. He wouldn't be able to give specific information about certain things to enroll in, like companies or things like that. But overall general guidance, I'm sure he'd be happy to kind of provide some input to you. So if you've got any questions, be sure to put them in the chat or go ahead and call. And Big Grizz is running the sound for me tonight, and he's also monitoring other commercials and whatnot for us. So we appreciate him for that. But yeah, feel free to call in and ask questions. So we've got about 30 seconds before we're supposed to go to a break. What do you want to tell me in 30 seconds? Go.
All right. So yeah, the big thing is taking accountability, mindfulness with your spending, and also giving yourself a little bit of a break sometimes. So being kind to yourself. That's something that I would also encourage people to do, because we're just too hard on ourselves sometimes.
I agree. All right, well, we're going to go to a break, and then we'll be back with Joey Laswell.
Introducing LT Defense Tactical Gear, your ultimate solution for top-notch protection and performance in the field. Our armor bundles provide unmatched safety and comfort, while our battle belts and holsters ensure quick and easy access to your gear. Stay prepared for any situation with our high-quality medical supplies, designed to keep you ready for action at all times. Looking to enhance your skills? Our firearms training programs will take your proficiency to the next level. Trust LT Defense for all your tactical gear needs and gear up for success on the battlefield.
This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Make it clear that the views expressed by our host are not considered the official stance of NBR views. Remember, this is all about having fun and enjoying the ride.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Hi, welcome back to Tracer Rounds. I'm Terry, and my guest is Joey, and we're on NBR, who is the station that gives veterans a voice. So, Joey, I wanted to ask you, I don't have any questions yet, but I do have a question. So what is your suggestion towards retirement? Do you suggest putting money in a 401 or in a 457 or in a Roth? What's the best method to save some for retirement if maybe you don't have such a good retirement at your job, but or you have a fairly good, but you want to make sure that you have money going into retirement that if an emergency happens, you're going to be able to handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a common question, and really there's a lot of different factors, but your timeline kind of makes a difference. Like how soon you're planning to retire, kind of depend on how aggressive you might be. But ultimately, like a 401k is a great a great place to put your money. A Roth IRA. So if you already have a 401k in your job, then that's great. If it's coming out of your paycheck and it's automatic, that's perfect. As long as you're doing something, because I think that's the big thing is people put it off until it's almost a little too late, or it's they're kind of making up for lost time. The biggest thing that I try to encourage, especially younger people, is to start young, start small, but start young, because that time is really going to be important for you. But that's not to say that just because if you're older, that means that you're out of the you're out of luck, because your 401ks and your Roth IRA. So I will touch base on the Roth IRA versus a 401k real quick. Is that a Roth is money that's already come out of taxes from your paycheck. So it's post tax, and so it grows. It grows like a 401k. But then whenever you take it out, whenever you're in retirement age, you don't get taxed on it. It's not taxable income because you've already paid taxes on it. Whereas a 401k, that's pre-tax. So that comes out of your check before it gets hit with taxes. So, those are two different flavors of the same coin essentially, but some people like to lower their tax burden whenever they're in retirement age. But if you have a 401k, and as long as you're putting something somewhere, that's really important. So, there's definitely a lot of different ways. There's all kinds of different strategies, and I'm not a certified investment planner or anything like that. But there's some general strategies that you can use, and it's just there's a lot to it. But is like I said, the big thing is doing something, even if it's $50 a month, if that's what you can afford for now. But then obviously, whenever you get closer to retirement age, you want to ramp that up a little bit, so yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, in my civilian job that I do, I am a benefits and wellness administrator,
Oh,
which
nice.
I mean that's like I don't know, it's a kind of fancy title, but
Mhm.
basically what I do is I advise people on their benefits, and one being well, with us it's a municipality, so it's a 457. We don't have 401s because we're a government entity. So we have
Gotcha.
457s and we have Ross. And so I always have to give the briefing every time to say, okay, so you can contribute to these. We don't contribute, but you can and you should. If you want to start a financial, plan for your future, it's a good idea to do that. And so I tell them the same thing. The 457, it's a pre-tax contribution, and then when you pull it out, then it's taxed. And the Roth, like you say, is an after-tax fund. So you are putting the money in after you've already paid taxes, and then when you withdraw, it's tax-free. So I have to give a shout out to some supervisors that are out there, because they're already coaching their 19-year-old saying, this is a really good idea. I think you should do that. And the 19-year-old comes in and he goes, so I don't understand any of this. How do I do this?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think you're right on target when you're talking about, starting young and kind of educating the new workforce, because they really don't have an understanding of finances or all these options when it comes to savings and retirement and, just investments in general. So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's a
yeah.
lot to navigate, and it's stressful, and especially when you're in that age, when you're 18, 19, there's just so much that you're just, especially if you're just learning about finances, and then have somebody telling you, oh, well, you should be worried about retirement. And I'm like, at 19, 18, who's thinking about retirement,
Mhm.
Looking back on it, if I had a time machine, I would have started at 18, 19, even if it was 25, $50 a month, because I look back now and I realize that I could have been much better off if I had just put that
Right.
automatically and just put it away. It would have been so much nicer.
We do have a question. So the question is from Robert, and it says, how good are the 403B plans? Do you know anything about the 403Bs?
Well, yeah, so I'm not too familiar with 403Bs, honestly. I just pulled it up and I'm like, oh, okay, tax sheltered annuity or TSA. So yeah, that's something I'd have to actually research some more. And maybe I don't want to just try to spitball that, because that's still something that I'm still learning about. But like I said, it's all they're all different flavors of the same thing. You just want to put money away in any way that you can, and then make it an automatic habit, because time is the biggest element to compounding interest and growing your money. And by making it automatic, it just grows, versus your debts are basically growing too. So, you want to try to see the one side, like the light bulb moment for me was when I started investing a little bit, and then I saw my annual statement and I realized that I made like $200 for doing nothing, just having the money in there.
Right.
And it was just like, wow, okay. Yeah, I like that. I like that feeling versus seeing the interest charges on my credit card statement growing,
Right.
and then the balance never seeming to go down. So that's where I want to flip the script and really encourage people to chase that, instead of chasing consumer debt and consumerism. And there's nothing wrong with consuming or consuming, because I do it, everyone does it. It's just finding that balance, so yeah, that's definitely something that use the tools that are available to you, and then use them automatically if you can.
Yeah, I agree. And when I tell people about the Roth, and I tell them about 457s or 401s or any of those, I always tell them it's a marathon and not a
Mhm.
sprint. So you're not going to
Exactly.
get rich quick. And
Mhm.
all these are subject to the market, and there's ebbs and flows in the market. So it goes up, it goes down. So maybe you win some, you lose some. But
Mhm.
over the course of time, you should see increases and you should see gains at the end of the day. And so, like you say, for doing nothing but sitting and watching a statement come in, monthly or quarterly or annually, whatever the case may be, and seeing how much you've gained by just, putting your money in an investment, is really makes you kind of feel good and have a little bit of peace going, that I'm planning towards my future and I'm planning towards my retirement. Because like you say, everyone wants to get to the point where they're retire and they retire well, and they're
Yeah.
not financially, hindered by waiting on the next paycheck to come in. They want to be sure they have enough to actually live well and retire well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So, how would someone like contact you or get in touch with you if they wanted to get started? Just being part of the group and then having you work with them, or if they wanted to engage your services, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, for right now, so I'm still building like a website. Facebook is really my main platform for now, is my Fire Social Worker Facebook page.
Mhm.
Um, and I actually just recently put a link for a Calendly link so that people can book like a consultation with me, like a 15-minute, like just a free consultation,
Yeah.
just so we can touch base and I can ask you some questions and figure out if it's a good fit for us to work together. So it's really kind of casual right now, and I'm just kind of like getting the ball rolling on some of that. But yeah, you can always message me on the Fire Social Worker. Yeah, thank you for that. Perfect
Yeah.
timing. And yeah, so there's also a cool little thing that I've been working on too. It's called School, Skool, and it is kind of like a community platform. But my vision is to basically have a group of people that come together, and you can kind of interact with people. You can do posts, you can do videos, and like I would be sharing content, but then you can also do group coaching and individual coaching through that platform. So that's another thing that I've been working on. So it's like free for now, with like a free community.
Mhm.
And then as more people join, I have the option of actually charging a subscription model to basically have access to the content. So, right now it's free, but then down the road, I might be like, okay, well, I'm starting to provide genuinely good content, or content that people actually want to hear about, and then I would create like a subscription model. So that's just something that I don't know how that's going to work out, but that's just an option for me to kind of have a community. Facebook is basically my community now, so it might be kind of redundant to have that, but yeah, I'm just trying different things and learning about the industry and how what does it mean to be a financial coach these days. How do I engage with people? How do I create an audience? So a lot of this is all new, and as you know, like, this is all kind of a new experience, but it's exciting, and I'm just excited to try to engage with people and change the narrative around money.
Yeah, well, I think you're doing a good job, because really people are afraid to talk about money. They don't want to tell people how much they make. They don't want to tell people how much in debt they are, or they maybe they have a lot of money and they don't want people to think, differently about them because they do have money. So they're afraid to talk even when they, they do or they don't have money, just because they don't want that to be an issue in the conversation. So just having, good conversations about where you're at, I'm in a good place or I'm not, or, something like that is, I think we are definitely needing to do that. I mean, I think those conversations are very valid. So we're going to go to a break here in about another minute. But if anybody has any more questions or wants to know more, let us know or call in. And my little brother's on here, so I wanted to give him a shout out. He's Robert. So hi, Robert. Thanks for joining.
My wife is on here too. So hello, Miranda.
We'll be going to a break here in just a minute, but I want to come back and I want to kind of wrap up, kind of what suggestions you might have, again, for people that are trying to get started. What's the first step? What's the next step? I know you said writing everything down, but we're going to get in more of that detail when we come back. So I think we're going to go to break in about 1 second.
It's the guts and it's the glory. 100 stripes, 100 stories. It's the Pledge of Allegiance on the 4th of July. It's them handwritten letters from home. It's them sleepless nights alone. It's his newborn baby he left with his wife. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, hear the line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Hey, from the fields of Indiana to the swamps of Louisiana, to the golden coast of California, Uncle Sam's the only family he's got. His purple heartbeat won't stop, and his 18th birthday was the day he was born. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, hear the light. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, stand on the front line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, pay the ultimate price. Oh. March in line, march in line. Hey. Hey.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Hi, welcome back. We're Tracer Rounds. I'm Terry, and my guest is Joey, and we're talking about personal finances. We're talking about making a good plan for the future. We're talking about what you can do today, what you can do tomorrow, and just kind of holistically what you can do about your finances and how best to use the resources that you have, or maybe generate some new ones. So Joey, before the break, but first of all, before I do that, I just wanted to say, if that song doesn't bring out your patriotic side, I don't know what will. Like,
Right.
that gets me in the gut every single time.
It's got it's got it all in that one.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I wanted to say, well, a couple things. Have you worked or looked at anything to do with the military's TSP program? Do you know anything about that?
Well, so when I was getting out of the Air Force, they had just implemented, or were about to implement, the new TSP
Yeah.
program with the government matching and all that other stuff. So I was right on the cusp of that transition. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I was pretty heavily into TSP, and it's one of those things where if I'm talking to an active duty member right now, especially a young person in their career, oh man, definitely put your money in the TSP. But the other warning behind that is it's going to default, and I don't know if it's changed since then, but it's going to default to the G fund, which is like the least aggressive fund. And a lot of people will just not think about it and just leave their money in the G fund because they're just like, oh, I'm putting money into my retirement. That's just all they're thinking. And I actually knew a staff sergeant who had been in for like almost 8 or 9 years, and he had just left his money in the G fund, and he had missed out on years and years of growth. So it's not just investing and putting your money in the percentage of your check. You actually have to go in there and change your allocation and, like, line up your allocation to your timeline and your trajectory. So like if you're starting out in your career, you can go pretty aggressive with stocks versus bonds and that mix, whatever. But yeah, that would be my cautionary tale is to, especially now with the matching, at least do the match, do up to the match, but then definitely put more if you can, just because there's low expense ratios with the TSP. So that just means that they charge low fees to manage the fund. It's one of the lowest that in the industry almost. But there's a lot of TSP millionaires out there. It's just one of those things that you gotta start young, and you gotta be consistent. And like whenever you get a raise, you put that money towards your investments. So yeah, that's if I'm talking to the active duty crowd, reservists, like people who are still earlier in their career or in their career, that would be my what I would advocate for.
Yeah, I had some money in a 401k with a previous employer, and then I rolled it. I was going to roll it into another plan, but I looked at what I had made, and I had not really made much for the length of time I had the plan because I didn't manage the funds. I just left it where it was, and if they defaulted to something different, I just let it. I didn't really spend time to really digest the information and really make good decisions. So you saying that is very important because you really do have to look at what you're investing in, or have somebody looking at it. If you don't want to manage it yourself, you want someone to really be looking at the plans and making the best suggestions for what to go to. Because I think I invested in like some government slow growth plan, and yeah, it was seriously slow growth.
Well, while we're talking about that, I will say that a lot of plans nowadays have what are called target funds. So they'll basically you kind of they'll have it based off of your projected retirement age or date. So you would have like a 2045, 2050 target date fund. So it automatically will adjust your stocks to bonds like percentage. So it might be like 80% or 90% stocks, 10% bonds. And then as you get closer to retirement age, it'll automatically adjust that for you. So that's probably, for most people, that's probably a safe bet because it's already going to be managed for you and you don't have to really think about it. Yeah, I would definitely encourage you to look, or other people to look into target date funds.
So let me just ask you, we only have about 7 minutes left in total, but I wanted to ask you, you're starting this business. How did you get started, or what would you suggest if somebody else is trying a business, not necessarily the one you're doing, but just how did you figure out what you wanted to do? What first steps did you take? Just kind of along that line.
Well, I might not be the greatest person to ask because I'm just throwing everything at the wall at this point. But yeah, like I've the internet is a great resource. The Small Business Administration, there's all kinds of, there's actually a lot of cool mentorship groups for military members and transitioning veterans. I think there's one called Veterati that I partnered with, I partnered with a mentor, and he basically gave me some some business advice, and so there's just so many resources. It's almost overwhelming, honestly, but yeah, like I've just been just ingesting, reading books and watching videos, and reaching out to other people who are already ahead of me. So that's actually a kind of a good segue to what I'm trying to do with the Money in the Military show. Is I have some veterans lined up that are basically where I want to be someday, is to be, financially independent, or they're like really successful. And I'm basically going to be interviewing these veterans about their journey. What did they do right financially? What maybe some mistakes that they made? And I want to tell their stories, but I'm also trying to learn from them too, because especially if they've made the transition and they're successful veterans, then I'm just being greedy, and I'm like, I want to learn from you too, but other people can learn as well. So that's kind of my vision for the show, is just having people, telling real people, real veterans, real military members, telling their stories, sharing what they've learned, so that way we can interact with the younger generation, and they can hopefully engage with that story, those lessons learned. And I just, yeah, it's just one of those things where even with all that great advice and wisdom, you're still going to make some of those mistakes. And I'll give a shout out to my dad, who told me all the right things that I should do with my money. And I still, when I was on my own for the first time, I made pretty much every mistake in the book. So shout out to Ed Laswell for trying to do the right thing and prepare me. But at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we're going to make some mistakes. But I at least appreciate him trying.
Right. Well, I think you're saying that the good news is you can make a change if you want to, and there's hope for the future if you want there to be hope, and if you want, to make certain financial gains in your life, that all you have to do is just start at zero. Just like you said, put a pen and paper down, or get the computer out, or use your phone, whatever format you want to record your finances on, but just getting a financial picture for yourself. Because I think, like you said, it's really pretty scary once you start writing everything out and really realizing what you are spending. Then you're like kind of shocked, I think, because I saw an ad the other day, and it was about this company that takes all your subscriptions and they put it in one place so that you can see what you're paying for, and then you go, am I paying for that? Like, it's a shock. Like, they don't remember that they've actually subscribed. And so just putting all this stuff down in one place, you kind of go, well, what can I do without, or what don't I need, or what's duplicated?
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're right.
The subscription models are just through the roof nowadays. There's a subscription model for everything. Everything has a plus thing, and like there's just so much. But yeah, that's a whole nother topic of discussion, I guess.
Right. Yeah, no. So I think I learned a lot from you during this hour we've spent together. We've just seen each other in passing on different podcasts and whatnot, but I really appreciate you giving us some hints and some tips and ways to get started, because really it just takes putting out that first step, just that just the want to do something different so that you get in a better place. And so I really appreciate you coming on and just really kind of walking us through that process and giving us some coaching. And so if anybody's out there and needs some coaching, Joey is a great mentor or coach. I've already figured that out. So, show him some love on his pages, and, like his videos, and get educated on your finances. And so I think we have like 1 minute left. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up, Joey?
Oh, yeah. I just want to say thank you, because you actually helped me. You let me jump in on a live stream once to kind of help me acclimate. So I really appreciate you offering your help. And you were like, I'm just starting this too, and I'm but you were willing to jump in and help me. So I appreciate that. And I really love this MBR team. Like, I just love how everyone is really supportive and helpful and encouraging. It's just been awesome. So I'm just be over the moon excited to be a part of this team. And I just thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I know our guests got something out of it like I did, I'm sure. So yeah, we appreciate the time, and we'll look forward to hearing more about when your podcast starts.
All right. That sounds great.
Tracer Round signing off.
That's the show for today, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with an all-new show. And remember, you can listen to us again and again. The podcast of this radio show is available right after we go off the air tonight, anywhere that you can get your podcast episodes. And thanks for joining us today. I'd like to take a moment to talk about something close to my heart. Military Broadcast Radio is doing incredible work to support our veterans and bring their voices to the world. They rely on your generous donations and your dedicated volunteer hours to make it happen. I encourage you to consider supporting NBR in any way, form that you can. Use this QR code that's attached to the picture, or you can go to our website at mbradio.us. That's Mike Bravo Radio.us to learn more about how you can donate